Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here's a look at some of the stories we have lined up for you tonight. Air Canada passengers will take to the skies as a tentative deal is struck with the Flight Attendants Union. Plus, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wins his seat back in Parliament after conquering the by-election. And it was a procession of floats and dignitaries as the annual Whoop Up Days parade kicks off Lethbridge's biggest summer event.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. Air Canada flights are set to return to the skies this evening. The country's largest airline and the union representing some 10,000 of its flight attendants have reached a tentative deal to end a strike that began Saturday morning. The union says the deal would end the practice of unpaid work by flight attendants and brings about, quote, transformational change to the industry. This means customers with confirmed bookings whose flights are shown as operating should be going to the airport today. The airline estimated Monday that the flights of about 500,000 passengers had been canceled during the walkout that coincided with the busy summer travel season. It says a return to regular service may take about a week. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has secured a seat in the House of Commons late Monday, easily winning a by-election in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot. The riding was left vacant shortly after the spring general election when Conservative Damien Curick stepped down to make way for the party leader who lost his Ottawa seat.
This has been a privilege. Getting to know the people in this region has been the privilege of my life. In fact, I've had a hell of a lot of fun. Whether it's been at the Bronx matches or the rodeos, or walking into a parking lot, some guy I don't even know walks up and offers me a big bag of beef jerky. Does it happen in the city? Or another guy says he's got a four-wheeler and he tells me I can tear around town in it all by myself and trusts the city boy to do that. I don't know what he was thinking, but I really love the people of Battle River Crowfoot. They're the kind of, what you see is what you get, give you the shirt off their back, tell it like it is, common sense people. They read, I love you too. Thank you very much. I love you.
Your voices and our issues will be raised on the national stage because we have a national leader representing us whose fierce dedication and commitment to bringing a megaphone to this region is unmatched. And folks, let me tell you, that has already been the case. When headlines say that the Prime Minister moves because Pierre Poilievre speaks. We have a fighter in Pierre Poilievre. He'll be a fighter for Battle River Crowfoot, he'll be a fighter for Alberta, for the West, and he will be the right fighter for the Canadian people.
Poilievre will be sitting across from Prime Minister Mark Carney when Parliament resumes in the fall. He also faces a mandatory party leadership review in the new year. Despite a flurry of meetings and guarded optimism among world leaders, there was little concrete progress on the main obstacles to ending Russia's 3-year war on Ukraine. With more is Chris Majerian from the Associated Press.
Despite some intense meetings at the White House, we're still a long way from peace with the Russia-Ukraine war. What we saw recently was European leaders and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky visit President Trump at the White House, trying to hash out a framework for negotiations with Russia to end the war. Ukraine wants security guarantees to prevent future Russian aggression, and Trump wants to end the war as soon as possible. This has raised a lot of questions about what the next steps would actually look like to actually resolving this conflict that's dragged on for years. Who will provide the security guarantees? What will they look like? Will they involve soldiers in Ukraine instead of a peacekeeping force? Would there be something kind of like NATO, where an attack on one is an attack on all? All these are really open questions right now. But figuring these things out will be key before the potential next step, which is Zelensky meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And potentially that meeting will be a trilateral meeting with President Trump as well. But what everybody's willing to accept here is going to be very tricky. Russia wants to keep the land that it seized from Ukraine during this war, and Russia tends to feel like time is on its side. It doesn't need to reach a deal immediately. It's making slow but steady progress on the front lines. Putin does not want a ceasefire at a time when he is making that progress militarily. And of course, Zelensky does not want to give up the land that has been taken from his country by Russia during this invasion. So it's really a question of how they're going to break this gridlock and what the U.S. is willing to give to Ukraine, what Europe is willing to give to Ukraine to make it more palatable to allow Russia to keep some of the territory that has a firm grip on by now.
U.S. President Donald Trump has offered his assurances that American troops will not be sent to help defend Ukraine against Russia after seeming to leave open the possibility on Monday. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand is in Helsinki to meet with Finnish President Alexander Stubb today. The leaders are expected to talk about increased cooperation between Canada and Finland when it comes to economic and Arctic security. Anand told reporters on Monday that she believes NATO's gaze needs to shift to the west and northward to ensure security for the Arctic from potential threats.
We are seeing increased activity, for example, in the Northwest Passage. We are seeing Russian infrastructure move further and further north on the other side of the Arctic Circle. So our priority in terms of Canada's Arctic foreign policy is to ensure that we leave no stone unturned to protect and defend Canada's sovereignty, especially in the Arctic.
Crews fighting an out-of-control wildfire near Port Alberni, British Columbia, are taking advantage of recent rainfall. The BC Wildfire Service says about 140 personnel working on the Mount Underwood blaze are starting to, quote, mop up areas at the fire's perimeter by extinguishing hot spots so that it doesn't flare up again. Meanwhile, officials say a wildfire in eastern Newfoundland and Labrador has destroyed more than 200 metered structures. Premier John Hogan explains what that means.
Just so everybody is clear, a metered structure does not necessarily mean somebody's home. It could mean somebody's home. It could mean a shed if it has a meter on it. It could mean a commercial structure as well. So it's important to keep that in mind. We say estimated because even though this is the numbers we have to date, there is a chance there could be additional losses in these communities. There might be a side road that we haven't got to yet. There might still be some clarification that needs to be done, but this is a very good, very close number to the structure losses that we have right now.
Hogan says so far about 106 people have been notified that their structures have been lost. So far in Newfoundland and Labrador, more than 6,200 people have been forced to flee their homes because of wildfires. Police in Alberta are warning the public to be on alert when approached by strangers after a string of distraction-style jewelry thefts. Since May, police have received 48 reports in Edmonton of people being approached by thieves, often posing as family, who will make a conversation while removing the complainant's jewelry. 3 women are facing theft charges and warrants which have been issued for 3 more people believed to be part of the scheme. Constable Shiva Shunmugam says the suspects have exploited people's trust, and she is reminding the public not to let strangers into their personal space. Saskatchewan's government plans to let pharmacists provide substitute medications to patients under specific conditions. The province says new training will let pharmacists prescribe alternative medications as long as they've been approved by the Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals. Health Minister Jeremy Cockerill says the measure should help patients receive more timely care when certain drugs aren't available, but an alternative can be used. Scott Livingston from the College of Pharmacy Professionals says substitution allows pharmacists to respond more effectively to patients' needs. Here in Lethbridge, thousands lined the streets Tuesday morning as the Whoop Up Days parade marked the opening of the biggest annual event in our city. Our BCN reporter Landon Hickok covered the event all morning and has more on some of the sights and sounds from the parade.
the 120 floats and 1,600 people paraded through the main streets of Lethbridge to kickstart the biggest fair in all of southern Alberta. A long list of dignitaries, businesses, Indigenous and cultural groups, and community organizations got to personally interact with the thousands of people that primarily lined up 3rd Avenue and 13th Street. The Morris family, who owns the local Gas King franchise, have been named the honorary marshals for this year's parade. They have been long-standing partners with the exhibition and the city for the last 2 decades.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're quite surprised when the exhibition park asked us to be parade marshals. We're very honored, of course. We don't think of ourselves as hometown heroes, but we're happy to lead this year's parade. It should be a lot of fun.
This is the best. This is the best feeling when you finally, after a year of work, get to this morning and you look out and you see the sea of colors and the sea of people, and you know that it's just leading into 5 and this year's 6 great days of action. There's not much better than right now, and seeing the community come together, and it kind of makes everything worth it.
As the week gets underway, parade goers also have the opportunity to visit any of the 18 pancake breakfasts or barbecues across the city, with the main events including the fair and pro rodeo being held at the Lethbridge and District exhibition. Families and visitors are showing their excitement for the countless activities that are spread out across the week.
Oh, it's just a lot of fun family activities, and it's just great to see everybody out and having a good time.
What are you looking forward to the most?
The candy.
Do you like the horses too?
Yes.
Yeah. Are we going to go to the fair?
Yes.
What do you want to do there?
Go on the cool stuff.
Any cool rides?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great day. It's lovely weather. It's a great event for the family.
Yeah, the rodeo. It's going to be fun, hey?
And the rides later on today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The parade left from Park Place Mall at 9 a.m. and continued on until Galbraith School. Participants say this parade is also a prime opportunity to present themselves and showcase who they are to the public.
Oh, we've been in this for many, many years. Actually, we're a long-term participant of this event, and we are all very excited to be here every year. It's so exciting to see Lethbridge, everybody come out.
Oh, it's incredible. There were so many people. I don't know how many, but a lot of smiling faces, that's for sure. It's great to see. It's a busy week. It's an exciting week. I feel really welcomed by the whole city of Lethbridge. It's incredible. So just proud to be playing here. We're really excited for the Southland show and for Whoop Up Days on the main stage. It's going to be great.
The gates for the exhibition opened at 12 p.m. and will continue to open at noon every day throughout the week until Sunday. For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
Happy Whoop Up Days!
Happy Whoop Up Days! Happy Whoop Up Days!
Aw, and a happy Whoop Up Days to you too. Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is in Lethbridge to help kick off Whoop Up Days. He arrived Monday for a sold-out Better Together town hall meeting held last night at CASA. Tuesday, as he was marking the rounds at the parade and the mayor's barbecue, Nenshi was asked about the comments he made at the start of the Calgary Stampede. With so many politicians in attendance, he called it, quote, a political petting zoo.
Well, I didn't say a political petting zoo was a bad thing, because that's I think the mistake that people made. I've been calling it that for many, many years. But it really is an opportunity for people to meet politicians. And what I had told my team was, get out of the cycle where you're just talking to the government relations people and the lobbyists. Get out to events like this and talk to regular people. Go to every single church pancake breakfast. Hand out burgers and sandwiches and chips at events like this. And so I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm here with a couple of my MLAs, including Rob Miyashiro, the outstanding MLA for this area. And it's a great opportunity for us to meet with people. This is my second time down at Whoop Up Days, and it was so great. I feel like I've been to about 146 parades across Alberta this summer.
Nenshi says their Better Together town hall meetings have been a bit of an experiment where people are allowed to not only share their opinions, but also interact with each other and discuss what Better Together actually means to them. Also in town for the kickoff to Whoop Up Days was Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, whose party recently received criticism over the transparency of her staff's public reporting of receipts. Smith did not speak to any members of the media, but during our in-studio interview with the Alberta Director of Canadian Taxpayers Federation, Chris Sims took the premier to task over this lack of transparency and says a special cabinet meeting was to be held today about the issue. She also explains what the premier's response was to this issue during a recent Alberta Next panel.
And to her credit, she said, yeah, I was confused by that too. All we wanted to do was delete like the name of a frequented hotel. Say you're in Medicine Hat or you're in Red Deer, you go there all the time, you're a bit worried about people knowing your location, just white it out. Right. Just delete it. I can do it on my phone in like 8 seconds. All that said, she promised to reverse this. That was the quote. So we're just waiting for this to be reversed and transparency to be restored.
That full interview will air on Bridge City News on Wednesday. And the party is just getting started. Following the Weep Up Days parade, Mayor Blaine Higgin returned with the Mayor's Community Barbecue for the 4th year in a row. Besides organizing the event, Higgin also rolled up his sleeves to personally flip and serve hamburgers and hot dogs for a couple of hours at City Hall. According to the mayor, the event drew more than 1,600 attendees.
Community events are, it's amazing. You may hear the little negative things every now and again, but this is something, when you come to Whoop Up Days and community events, people just come together and just have a great time. And we don't get out as much as I would like to, and so being able to come here and to just walk up and down the lineup and meet folks and thank them for coming and for what they do to make our community so wonderful. As you can see in the lineup, it's such a diverse community as well, which is absolutely amazing. The Premier replied pretty quickly that she would be down, as well as the Leader of the Opposition, Ed Nenshi, and many MLAs and ministers came down. And the Premier to show up here today, she had asked me, says, let me know what we can do for you and your community. It's very important. And then, of course, meeting with Naheed Nenshi is the Leader of the Opposition, the same thing. He just wants to have a community that is safe for all and we can all enjoy.
The annual barbecue has quickly become a staple of Whoop Up Days, bringing the community together over burgers and hot dogs. Well, Lethbridge is a medium-sized city, but it's got large city traffic problems. At least that's how it felt for many motorists Monday evening who spent hours in traffic gridlock on their way home to the city's west side. BCN's Naveen Day has the details.
Monday night was a perfect traffic storm. Construction on the Whoop Up Drive Bridge, the aftermath of a collision that damaged the same bridge, and a collision involving two semi-trucks that backed up westbound traffic on Highway 3, the only two ways to get directly from the east to the west, bottlenecked. The frustration of last night's traffic gridlock added to the east-west commute saga, and renewed cries for a third bridge continued into the next day at the Mayor's Barbecue. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin says with dignitaries in town for the kickoff to Whoop Up Days, he had an opportunity to make some inroads with attaining solutions and funds.
We've got coming up in our CIP 27 to 31, it's not funded, but there is additional talks on a third bridge. We've had them, 3 motions that I brought forward over the past 3 years to talk with the province. I had the opportunity to talk with the Premier this morning. She's put me in touch with Minister Dreeshen and Alberta Transportation, and we will, infrastructure, we will be in touch with them to find out if there's other sources of revenue to possibly look at another bridge.
The long lineup for hamburgers was representative of last night's gridlock, but fortunately, it moved faster. Lethbridge City Councillor Ryan Parker says while a third bridge would bring a permanent solution, temporary solutions need to be prioritized.
We're constantly working with our levels of our partnerships with the government, provincial and federal, trying to find matching funds, and we keep on hitting a brick wall. And we're not shovel ready, but we got the land allocated. So, but in the meantime, even if we decided we're going to build a bridge tomorrow, it ain't going to be built tomorrow. It's going to take years. So we need to find some kind of solutions in the meantime, because we're going to have accidents. The west side's growing, the city's growing, people are driving more and more, and so we need to find some temporary solutions to take away this frustration, because 2-hour waits, that's intolerable for anyone in this community.
And speaking of the collision that caused damage to the Whoop Up Drive Bridge, one motorist who was on the bridge at the time says that the impact felt like an earthquake.
It was like a jolt, it was like you could feel at time of impact, and I thought something was wrong with my car at that point in time. And of course later learned that it was like, my car's fine, right? Like, what was that? And when I seen the construction workers looking down, I was like, something happened with the construction, like they just broke the bridge.
For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thanks so much for that, Naveen. Well, today's Whoop Up Days parade wasn't the only marching going on in the city. Members of the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees marched in solidarity for collective bargaining. The union held an information picket at the Lethbridge Provincial Building. AUPE Vice President Curtis Jackson says the Workers' Bargaining Committee is currently at the table in enhanced mediation, and the clock has run out.
We have given the government and the people at the negotiating table a deadline of August 29th to come to our members with a prospective tentative agreement that moves all of our workers forward, not just some. If a tentative agreement cannot be given to us by August 29th, then we are looking at serving strike notice by September 6th. But I think it's really important to point out that we're at the table, we're actively negotiating, we're trying to get a contract. We don't want to go on strike. We don't want to serve notice, we want a contract. So the members here today are out here supporting their negotiating team, supporting their bargaining team, and putting their boots to the ground to just show their support.
Here in Alberta, we're dealing with a premier who is completely focused on fringe issues. She's focused on making sure that people can't get their vaccines. She's focused on having a conversation about separation. Meanwhile, she's not concerned at all about the fact that most people can't pay their bills, and that's where she should be focused.
You know, and I think what Kathleen said is so true, is that if the employer is not willing to be fair and the employer is not willing to meet the employees, at least partially around the way, you get things like this. You get job action, you get people wanting to picket, wanting to let people know in the community why they're about to have a job action or whether or not they can.
So far, over the summer months, a city-wide water drive has distributed over 36,000 bottles of water through several outreach programs. Taylor Doyle of the Lethbridge Interfaith Food Bank is urging the community to continue supporting the water collection campaign.
We're giving out a lot of water each and every day. We have several distribution partners that we give water to, such as My City Care, Streets Alive. They are able to come to the food bank once per day and pick up an allotted amount of water to give to those who need it. For our unhoused population, that's where it's needed most. Those who don't have access to fresh running water, who may not have access to clean drinking water. It's important that they not only have water, but water to keep them cool and to combat those heat emergencies, because they're stuck out in the sun all day. Community members want to donate water. We are so grateful for that support. We would love for them to bring their cases or bottles of water down to Interfaith Food Bank or Lethbridge Food Bank. They're also welcome to donate online. If you're not able to bring the physical water, funds are just as good. We're able to go buy that water ourselves. So just head online to interfaithfoodbank.ca/donate.
Interfaith Food Bank's partners expect to collectively distribute well over 10,000 liters of water this summer. After 8 years of planning, a cost of more than £39 million, or about 72 million Canadian dollars, a church in northern Sweden began a 5-kilometer journey on Tuesday to make way for the expansion of Europe's biggest underground mine. The 672-ton Kirunda Swedish Lutheran Church, inaugurated in 1912, is to be slowly rolled to its new home over 2 days at a pace of a half a kilometer an hour.
Yeah, today it's a historical day here in Kiruna. We are moving our fantastic church that you see behind me. We are going to move it half the way today, so it's 5 kilometers in total. The land where the church lays down right now is affected by our mining operations. So we have to move. It's in the impacted area of the mine, the church today. So we have to move the church to a new position in the new city center.
The church was forced to move because the world's largest underground iron ore mine is threatening to swallow not just the church, but the whole town. The church is expected to reopen at its new location at the end of next year. Wow, what a spectacle that was. It was a beautiful day out there for a parade, and what better way to kick off Whoop Up Days with sunshine and a high of 30 degrees. I'll be back with your full Whoop Up week forecast right after this short break. Just a gorgeous kickoff to Whoop Up days, and it should be a nice Whoop Up week as well. I've reached a high of 31 degrees. Did not see those showers today. Could see a slight chance on Wednesday, though. Also, the possible risk of a thunderstorm. But high of 28 degrees and mostly sunny for the rest of the day. So, hey, we'll take it. And then look at that. Lots of sunshine for the rest of the week as well. Highs of 24 on both Thursday and Friday. Up to 27 on a Saturday. That's more like it. High of 30 for both Sunday and Monday. Of course, Whoop Up Days ends on a Sunday. We get that extra day this year. Okay, so average high for this time of year, 25 degrees. Average low, 9. 34 was the record high in Lethbridge. That happened back in 1919. And Lethbridge's low was 0. And that happened back in 1950. That was the record low. So sun rose this morning at 6:27. Sunset this evening at 8:41. 3 minutes shorter than yesterday. So 14 hours, 14 minutes of daylight today. Okay, tomorrow on the West Coast could see a slight chance of showers in Victoria, high 20 degrees. 20 also for the high in Vancouver. Seeing some afternoon showers there. 60% chance of rain expected tomorrow in Edmonton, high 18. High of 21 in Calgary. Looks like Lethbridge is getting all the heat this week. Calgary could see a slight chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorms too by the afternoon. Heat warning in effect for Saskatoon and seeing a high of 29 degrees. Actually, heat warnings also expected in Regina. Both of those cities could expect some thunderstorms. Showers expected tomorrow in Winnipeg with a high of 29, which is also very warm. So very warm prairies for sure. Across central Canada, 23 for the high in Toronto, 30% chance of showers. Showers also expected tomorrow in Ottawa with high of 20 degrees and high of 23 in Montreal. Could see those showers there as well. Looking into the East Coast here, Atlantic Canada, 24 for the high in Fredericton, 21 Halifax, high of 21 also in Charlottetown with clear skies, and I have 13 degrees only in St. John's and could see some rain there. There you have it. That is your forecast. Lower prices at the pump helped Canada's annual inflation rate cool to 1.7% in July. Stats Canada says that's down from 1.9% in June. Gas prices were down more than 16% year over year, largely because of the removal of the consumer carbon price. It says there were signs of price pressure building for grocery bills last month. Costs rose 3.4% annually at grocery stores. Confectionery and coffee products saw a big year-over-year price jump in July. Here's a report from the Canadian Press with more.
Shelter inflation also saw its first increase since February of last year as rent prices rose. While the headline inflation number eased, core inflation metrics, which the Bank of Canada has been paying more attention to recently, are still stubbornly high, hovering around 3%. That's why economists appear split on whether the latest report is enough for the Bank of Canada to cut interest rates at its next meeting in mid-September after 3 straight holds at 2.75%. The central bank will get one more inflation reading the day before its meeting next month.
The annual pace of housing starts rose 4% in July compared with the month before. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says the annual rate of housing starts was over 290,000 units for July, up from roughly 280,000 in June. The CMHC says actual housing starts in July for centers with a population of 10,000 or greater was up 4% compared to last July. Apple has now launched its program that helps customers get the parts, tools, and manuals they need to fix their own devices in Canada. Customers will pay for parts and rent or buy tools necessary to make repairs, but get access to manuals and diagnostic software that help troubleshoot issues for free. The tech giant says its self-repair program can help with fixes for iPads, iPhones, and Macs. Canada is the 34th country to get access to the Apple self-repair program. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 98 points on the day to finish at 27,823. The Dow was up 10 to 44,922. The S&P 500 was down 37 to 6,411, and the Nasdaq was down 314 points to 21,314. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 88 cents to $62.54 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 13 cents to $2.76 US. Gold was down $16.62 to to $33.1578 US an ounce, and silver was down 63 cents to $37.39 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.24 per bushel, barley is at $5.79, canola is at $14.60, and corn is at $7.09 per bushel. Live cattle were down 40 cents to $236.32. Feeder cattle were up $1.65 to $350.55, and lean hogs were up 2 cents to $90.15 for the October contract. And the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $72.10 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, travelers are happy to hear the Air Canada flight attendant strike is over. The Canadian Union of Public Employees, which represents the flight attendants, agreed to a tentative deal early this morning. The union says the days of unpaid work are over. That was a huge sticking point, with the union claiming flight attendants worked an average of 35 unpaid hours work hours every single month. Yesterday, Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu said the federal government is launching a probe into allegations of unpaid work in the airline sector. As world leaders gathered in Washington, D.C. to discuss the road to peace between Russia and Ukraine, representation from Canada was nowhere in sight. Has Canada completely lost influence and its place on the world stage? Toronto Sun political columnist Brian Lilley gives us his take on this and other hot-button issues coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Pierre Poilievre won the by-election in Battle River Crowfoot, but his challenges are not quite over yet. To chat about this more is political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley. Brian, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Brian, what's the next big challenge for the Conservative leader? What do you think?
Well, he's got two. He's got the House returning, and I'm sure he's looking forward to that. And I'm betting he's happy. He's got the monkey off his back of having a run in the by-election just so he can face Mark Carney in the House. Of course, he couldn't be in the House of Commons for the very short, 20-day sitting. That's all Parliament sat this year, by the way, for the entire year is about 20 days.
So he didn't miss much.
So, Poilievre's going to be back in the House, and he is very talented at challenging prime ministers and government politicians during question periods. So it'll be interesting to see how he does that. So that's his first big challenge. The second challenge, though, is, of course, this leadership review. And he will have to find a way to make sure that, just like in the by-election, he wins handily. Now, I had said previously that he had to win between 70 and 82% of the vote. And I picked that because that's where the Conservatives normally fall within the riding of Battle River Crowfoot. And, he hit 80%, so he came very close to what Damien Kerr got in the last one, and well above the Conservative low point over the last number of years. I think he's got to get in that same range at the leadership review to make sure that he's not facing questions of, is the party really behind him? If you remember Jason Kenney, when he was premier, he did not get a strong enough mandate in his leadership review. He resigned, and that allowed for the leadership race that brought in Premier Danielle Smith.
Brian, getting back to that election, the by-election, there was a lot of talk about Alberta independence and about independent candidate Bonnie Critchley in the mainstream media, but it all kind of fizzled out, though, didn't it?
Yeah, last I looked, and there were just a few more votes to count, Bonnie Critchley didn't get above 10%. So, all this talk about her big, strong candidacy and, she's going to show Pierre Poilievre. Look, I know people will pump themselves up or their favorite candidate, but there was an awful lot of media attention on her. CBC really seemed to love her. And the voters of Battle River Crowfoot, not as much. And then as far as independent candidates or candidates in favor of Alberta independence, let's say, they didn't do very well at all. So they fizzled. And so did this longest ballot committee. That's one thing I'm really happy about. They did not generate the attention that they wanted. They're not getting the result they wanted. And I believe Elections Canada is going to look into how to prevent these sorts of things in the future.
Yeah, well, they certainly did get a lot of attention, that's for sure. But it kind of feels like with all those 200 candidates, it was kind of all for naught almost, right?
Mhm.
Some of those candidates didn't even get a vote, I don't think, when I was looking last night, unless things changed.
Well, and many of them aren't even from the riding, so they
Yeah.
weren't voting for themselves. So yeah, you don't even get the one vote for
Yeah.
yourself, or
Wow.
your husband or wife saying, "Yeah, fine, I'll go vote for you." They got nothing.
Yeah. Brian, switching gears totally here. World leaders were gathered in Washington, D.C. on Monday to meet at the White House with Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. But Mark Carney, absent. Why?
He has started to become irrelevant on this issue. And it's amazing because when you think back, Canada was the first Western country to recognize Ukrainian independence in 1991. As the Soviet Union's breaking up, Ukraine declares its independence. Prime Minister Brian Mulroney was there. He's like, yes, Canada recognizes an independent Ukraine. There was attempts to make sure that there were investments from both the government of Canada, but also Canadian businesses in the region to try and pull it along. And Mulroney's actions and the actions of the Canadian government at the time brought along other countries. Well, we've invested a lot in trying to help Ukraine beat back the Russian invasion. We have the largest Ukrainian diaspora community in the world. We are a NATO ally. Um, and according to Mark Carney, the most European of non-European countries. But we weren't there. Mark Rutte from NATO, the head of NATO, was there. Ursula von der Leyen was there, the president of the European Commission, the Italian prime minister, the British, the French, the German, the president of Finland was there. We did not get invited. It just goes to show that Canada is being alienated on many fronts. The word I got yesterday when I pointed this out from someone online, got word back from a source who's well connected with Washington and just said doors are closing in DC for Canadians showing up to talk to Americans.
Isn't that a slap in the face? Closest neighbor, and we weren't even invited. That's wow. So, Brian, are we any closer now to getting a deal with the Americans on trade? And if we aren't, is it something that will hurt the Liberals?
I don't think we're any closer. As I just said, doors are closing in Washington for Canadians, and that's on foreign affairs, that's on trade, that's on just about every issue. So, not good days for Canada. Now, will this hurt Mark Carney and the Liberals? Not with his elbows up crowd. They love that Carney is irritating Donald Trump. Okay, great. He's irritating Donald Trump. What does that mean? Well, it means that tariffs are remaining in place, and that means jobs are being lost. But an awful lot of Mark Carney's voters are, they're not in the job market anymore. They worry about their retirement and their investments. But, the people that put them over the edge, the people that love this, that eat it up and just think anything that makes Donald Trump mad is good, even if it's bad for Canada's economy, they're not worried about that. So I don't see it hurting them in the polls for quite a while if this continues, and I hope it doesn't because these are jobs on the line. But yeah, this is something that Mark Carney's voters and audience are proud of, and I hear from them saying, no, we don't need to do anything with the Americans. In fact, we should just cut them off completely, or we don't need to deal with that maniac in Washington. They love this. It's hurting us economically, but it doesn't seem to bother them.
Yeah. Brian, what about Canada's indecision to buy that jet? So it seems like one of those irritants that's making it harder to get a deal with Trump is Canada's indecision on whether we're going to buy the American-made F-35 fighter jet. So why is the current government reviewing the project?
Because the Americans put tariffs on us. So they said, well, maybe we won't buy your fighter jet. And this is not the first time that we've canceled. Remember, Stephen Harper had signed a deal to buy I believe it was 88 of these jets. Back in before 2015, then Justin Trudeau came in, ripped up the contract. We refused to buy them until a couple of years ago. Now we're in the process, like they're going to be delivered soon, or we have to cancel. And we're now reviewing it again over the trade issue. I pointed this out before, Jeanette. it's only Canada using the language of trade war with the Americans over tariffs. Other countries, including Mexico, all the leaders that were there yesterday, who have all found a way to get trade deals with them, uh, they've looked at it as, okay, this is a trade negotiation. That's what the Americans keep telling us it is, and we keep saying, no, it's a trade war. And so we are acting like we're at war with the Americans, and that includes threatening to not buy the American fighter jet. Now, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra was on a podcast with Jasmine Lane a little while ago and said it's Canada's decision which one to buy, but it is an irritant. You can bet that if we cancel it, that will just make it even more difficult to get a trade deal, if not impossible.
Oh, boy. The Americans aren't the only ones we're having trouble with on trade. Last week, China increased tariffs on canola. So is there any hope of those tariffs being lifted, Brian?
Not at the moment. And look, the impact last week was immediate. So there was already tariffs from China on canola meal and canola oil. Last week, they added a 75.8% tariff on canola seed. The price of a bushel of canola dropped immediately by $1 a bushel. Now, I've been talking to farmers who are anywhere from 25, 50,000 bushels that are seeded this year to hundreds of thousands of bushels seeded, depending on the size of the farm. And yeah, so, if you've got 200,000 bushels in your fields, well, you're going to be getting 200,000 bushels less for that canola if you hadn't sold it already on futures markets. Overall, canola prices are down over the last year and down steadily over the last two. This is not a good situation. Now, I keep hearing, well, we should just lift the EV, the electric vehicle tariffs that we have on Chinese electric vehicles, and then China will lift their tariffs on canola. They are actually retaliating against us. Here's the problem with that. Kind of stuck here. If we lift the tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and Chinese steel and aluminum, there's a good chance the Americans will hit us with more tariffs. We put those tariffs in place to make the Biden administration happy. And while everyone thinks that Donald Trump is completely against EVs, he's not. He just believes consumers should have choice. He doesn't want the Chinese EVs flooding the North American market. And so, what do you do? We're kind of in a real bind here. I know I'm often critical of the Carney government, but I'm not sure what the answer is.
Oh my gosh. Brian, inflation was also down last month, but due mostly to reasons that aren't good for Canada's economy. The price of oil dropped. Food prices, though, were up by 3.3%. So what's driving that?
The tariffs are a big part of food inflation. We do import a lot of our foods, especially prepared foods, from the United States. But also, we've been lagging on food inflation coming down. So it's a combination of the two. Food inflation has remained higher than general inflation. So this month, the core inflation rate was 1.7% compared to the previous month. Food inflation was 3.3%. So, it actually went up. It's always remained higher for the past year or so than core inflation. None of this is good news. And as you say, the only reason that the main inflation number went down is the price of oil dropping. Well, what does that do to Alberta's budget? Puts a giant hole in it. Does the same for not to the same degree, but the government of Saskatchewan as well. It's going to put a hole in their budget. Are they going to be in a deficit the way Alberta very well likely could be? Not sure. But oil needs to be back up in a sweet spot. None of us want oil to be too high in this country because, then we're paying more for gas or home heating or what have you. But if it's too low, then it's bad for economic activity in the oil patch. It's also bad for the government of Alberta's budget. But for consumers, they're getting cheaper prices at the pump and paying more for groceries. It's kind of evening out.
Political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you.
It's that time of year when folks are out enjoying the outdoors, especially Canada's provincial and national parks. But the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society is putting out the word about some hidden gems. In addition to being in the backyards of multiple provinces, they are also likely to be much less crowded than more popular destinations. So Katie Morrison is the executive director of the Southern Alberta chapter of the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society. She joins me now from Calgary. Katie, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course, lovely to have you. So, Katie, I believe that there are about 45 parks on your list. So how did you go about selecting these hidden gems?
Well, we know that this year the federal government gave free admission to national parks, and so those national parks are well known, they're well loved, and they're places that a lot of people go anyways, um, and even more so now with the free admission. So we just wanted to highlight some other parks across the country and here in southern Alberta. Um, that people could go to maybe get away from the crowds, explore new places, maybe experience some new ecosystems or some new cultural experiences, and really get to know their backyards outside of just those well-known national parks. So we looked in southern Alberta. We looked at um, some of the parks that maybe um, people hadn't heard of, or that gave different experience than some of the national parks. So grassland ecosystems are smaller areas more close to urban centers that would provide good experiences for
Yeah,
people.
for sure. So since we are based in Alberta and you're with the Southern Alberta chapter of Canadian Parks and Wilderness, let's talk about those first. So yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about there's one called Brown Lowry Provincial Park. It's southwest of Calgary. So what's special about that one?
Yeah, Brown Lowry is a beautiful little park just close to Calgary. So it makes, if you live in Calgary, it's a nice day trip out to Calgary. We do at CPAW Southern Alberta, we do school programs and hiking programs. And that's one of the places that we take our programs because it's got great trails that wind through both grasslands and mature forest. It's got beautiful outlooks. In the spring, there's wildflowers. You can see a lot of wildlife, but it's well set up. It's well marked. It's a place that you can go for a day and really explore the foothills of Alberta.
Oh, beautiful. And then northwest of Calgary, you're telling folks about Bill Hill Springs Provincial Park.
Yeah, Big Hill Springs Provincial Park. That's another one that we chose. It's a very tiny little place, but it is one of those ones that maybe you might drive past on your way out to the mountains and not even know it's there. But it's another place that is really close that you can take the family to. It was one of Alberta's first provincial parks. Um, it's got a little spring and small little waterfalls through there. It's got some historic ruins of a fish hatchery. Um, just a really family friendly picnic spot, photography, relaxation day trip.
And it's one of Alberta's earliest provincial parks?
Yeah, it was created in the 50s, so one of the earliest parks that in our provincial park system.
Oh, that's wild. And I've heard that the waterfalls there are kind of like tiered, like spilling
Yeah,
over each other. That's
you know, it's not a
gorgeous.
massive, big, Niagara
Right.
Falls waterfall,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
a beautiful little stream coming from that spring.
That's awesome. Okay, and here in the south, there's Castle Provincial Park west of Pincher Creek. So what can visitors find there?
Well, Castle Provincial Park, in contrast, is one of Southern Alberta's newest parks. So it became a park in 2017 after a lot of advocacy and work from local groups and conservation organizations. And it's much more that classic Rocky Mountain montane forest, beautiful valleys. It's also very important for conservation. It's a wildlife corridor, home to um, a lot of those charismatic megafauna that you see in the mountains: grizzly bears, black bears, elk, cutthroat trout. And it's also one of the areas of the highest biodiversity in the province, with more than 200 rare at-risk species. So it's got both front country campgrounds, comfort camping, as well as backcountry trails, backcountry camping, hiking, fishing, mountain biking. It's really just a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yes, no, it is gorgeous for sure. I've been in the area because I ski out near that area, and it is lovely. But it's true, most people kind of head to the national parks. But I know it's really popular, that Castle area. And okay, so speaking of southern Alberta, we'll look a little bit further south from Lethbridge on the way to Montana. There is a place called Writing on Stone Provincial Park. Most of us in Lethbridge are very familiar with it. I've been there a number of times. It's absolutely gorgeous. Tell us about Writing on Stone.
Yeah, Writing on Stone we picked because it was that grassland and cultural experience. So, people often think about going out for a day trip or going for a hike, and they think about the mountains. But the grasslands are an amazing place to explore, and along the Milk River and those coulees, grassland wildlife that you don't see in the mountains, like pronghorn or maybe some rattlesnakes or grassland birds. So beautiful, beautiful grassland ecosystem. And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which means it's internationally recognized for particularly its cultural importance. It's very important, and you can learn a lot about Indigenous history and Blackfoot history in that region, going back to time immemorial. There's petroglyphs and pictographs, so rock carvings and paintings from many years ago from Indigenous people in that land. It's got great interpretation, so you can learn not just about maybe an ecosystem you don't explore as much, but also more about Alberta's history, and particularly First Nations history.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Writing on Stone is really celebrated also for those dramatic sandstone hoodoos. It's just so famous to that. It's like nothing, you feel like you're on another planet a little bit when you're down there. It's almost like being in the desert too. It's really, really cool. And then like you said, those pictographs and petroglyphs, and nestled right on the Milk River, you can camp there. It's a campground. So it's lovely, that area. And then what else? So I know we don't have time necessarily for all 45 of the parks that you guys are showcasing, but what are some of the other parks in other provinces that you'd like to mention?
Well, I think there. If you look at the map, there are places in our chapters across Canada have picked some of their gems that they have within their provinces, and so I would encourage people to check out what's across Canada, and maybe if you're going on a road trip this year or next year, plan to stop at some of those places in Saskatchewan or Manitoba, because all across Canada we have beautiful wilderness sites, and even here in Alberta, we picked four of the these lesser known gems for the site, but Alberta has over 400 parks and protected areas, some of them quite small, some of them quite large. And so I'd really encourage people to go on the albertaparks.ca website and look at those little lesser known gems or those places in their own backyards, and go visit and explore what Alberta has to offer, or these other parks across Canada.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, with a lot of Canadians choosing to stay in country this summer, and those free passes for the parks, what better time to go kind of checking them out, right?
So we know Albertans love their parks. We know that Albertans love to be outdoors, and Albertans are really engaged in their park system. So also just encouraging folks to continue to stay engaged in the management of these places, and encouraging government to create more parks, or manage well these really special places that we have here.
Yeah, I mean, it might be worth mentioning also that since everyone is kind of doing the same thing, checking out these parks, the problem could be that everyone else is likely doing it, and so a lot of the more popular destinations like the Watertons and the Banff and the Jaspers, so those places could get crowded. So I guess the good news is that we have a solid 45 parks that most Canadians overlook in favor of more popular destinations, right? So these really are hidden little gems open for exploration.
Absolutely. Get out there and explore.
Yeah. Katie Morrison is the Executive Director of the Southern Alberta chapter of the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society. That's a mouthful. Thanks so much for being with us today, Katie.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.